Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari. I'm just waking up too. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. I'm still a little bit asleep, but it's starting to wake up. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Krishna Chaitanya, Guru Nityananda, Shed Wait to get at her, Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Radhe Radhe Radhe, Radhe Radhe Radhe, Radhe Radhe Radhe, Radhe Radhe Radhe. This is celebration of Radharani's appearance today. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Krishna Krishna, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Shri Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. So it's becoming more clear that my service now is just to take shelter of the holy name. That's it. And just put everything else, minimize everything else. Minimize interacting with other people and forget it. And Krishna has put me in a good spot to do that. If I have to call out loud, it doesn't really bother anyone. I don't think anyone can hear it. The neighbors across the street are like over there. The neighbor over there is like over there. And the neighbor over there is like over there. And there's no neighbors over there. So I'm not particularly disturbing anyone. I have to call out like that. It's a great luxury. And Krishna's given me a tongue and vocal cords and lungs to call out, Krishna, Hare, Krishna. So fortunate. It's thinking about some people, bad karma, they can't speak or they can't hear. What a terrible karma situation. What I've heard is for people who can't hear, they can feel the vibration. If the name is being chanted or there's a kid, they can feel the vibration. Hare Krishna. Well, that's a challenge, huh? Wow. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Those poor people who can't speak. They can't vibrate the holy name. Well, they can take prashadam. And they can hear. Some people can't, they got both problems. They can't speak and they can't hear. They're deaf and dumb. I, at one point, many years ago, drove a school bus for blind children. That was an interesting service. It was during my hippie days, and I'm ashamed to admit that I would drive the school bus for blind children while taking LSD and got away with it. So it was definitely a trip for them as well as me, because they're very sensitive. Children that are blind or people, they're hearing, So they could hear there was something a little off with me. My vibration, because I was in this other space, and they could pick up on it. But there was a boy who was also deaf and dumb, couldn't speak, couldn't hear. What a challenge, huh? So, those of us that are blessed like that, we have that facility, we can hear and chant. And this movement is so vast, this Hare Krishna movement. It's just, there are devotees who are able to get their PhDs in different fields of study. Philosophy, religion, sciences, mathematics, sociology. They can get there to become very high up. They're given that gift. High up in infiltrating the intellectual community. And Prabhupada wanted that. He wanted that. Because this movement is meant to bring about a revolution, spiritual revolution on the planet. I think it's in the beginning of Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says. Or maybe the beginning of Gita. I think beginning of Bhagavatam. It's meant to bring about a spiritual revolution. A renaissance. A new age. The golden age of Lord Chaitanya. So reaching these intellectuals who are very influential because they're in the educational, intellectual field of activity, they influence all of society because their textbooks are in the schools, and then every child, they go to school and they learn, and it's coming from these intellectuals and scientists. So Prabhupada very much wanted to devotees to be in a position to infiltrate this and help them, these people, become conscious. Not stop their service. Keep doing, but this way, not that way. It's that way. It's not that way. That's darkness. It's this way. Here's the light. So there are devotees who are doing that, and they just recently opened Bhaktivedanta Institute right down the street from the University of Gainesville, and the building was the former president of the university. They bought it's a huge building, and the present president of the university has taken a lot of prasadam while he was a student there. And he was there cheering the devotees on. Yes, we want you here. This is wonderful, very nice. And they'll be giving classes and symposiums and inviting guest speakers to speak on these different subjects that intellectuals are interested in. Theology, physics, spiritual, metaphysics. They're going to be doing that there. They have an extensive library. Boy. Actually, my tongue was hanging out. I would have loved to look at some of those books. They said I could go any time and use the library. Maybe I'll go sometime and just read the titles and look at the table of contents just so I can get exhilarated with the kind of preaching they're doing. So that's going on. That's not what I'm going to be doing. It's not my field. But I see it and I appreciate it and become even more ecstatic about this movement, even though I'm a useless piece of poop and I can't do anything except try to chant Hare Krishna. I can't do anything. Especially now, as I'm getting older. It's, it's like all day long. Where's my glasses? It's like this. Where's my glasses? Where's my... Hare Krishna. So, and I see there are many of us, not just me, I'm not the only one, who the only hope for us now is to take full shelter of the chanting. That's it. I see a lot of the older devotees here, whether they've remained unmarried and just dedicated their lives to worshiping the deities or distributing books or whatever, or they're married and they've had children, lovely children, beautiful children, great, talented singers, artists, intelligent kids that aren't really kids anymore because now they have kids. So we're working on the third generation. But those devotees in like my age bracket who did all of that, they're in that position where they have to just take shelter of the holy name also. Because they did all of that. They did the household thing, they did the kids to school, to college, they did the jobs, they did whatever they did, and it's all done. And the kids are out now on their own. And so it's a lot of empty nests, And so now what? Take shelter of the holy name. Did all of that. And then there are those devotees that didn't go through that, like myself, who didn't marry, didn't have family, didn't go through that, just tried to do the renounce thing their whole life, tried. A few, whoops, wrong turns along the way, but the life didn't become, it didn't sprout into full-fledged, household situation with economic pressures and social pressures. It didn't sprout into that. And to one degree or another was able to remain just either distributing books or serving the deities or doing a free food program or something like that. Kind of like was able to do that. But it doesn't matter. Because now I have to just take shelter of the holy name. And I'm seeing it more and more with the older devotees. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. So, today's Radha's appearance day, big celebration over at the temple, even though no one can go to the temple because of the virus restrictions. See, they don't want the county to come in and close them down altogether. So they're being very careful. Because I noticed the other day, county inspectors came and they inspected how far apart the X's are on the floor, and they did all kinds of inspections. So they don't want the government to come in and close it down. So they're very, very careful. And also, there were a couple cases of the virus over there after the big Janmashtami festival. So they closed down completely, all on their own, for a whole week, just to try and clear the air out, because a lot of guests came, John Russell. So, yeah, I just want to be real careful. And Florida is very high on the list for outbreak of this Delta thing. It's real high on the list of other states. Florida's right up near the top. But there is a big there is a big celebration of for the devotees that live there, and there's prasadam. You can drive through. It's like a drive-through. People can come. They can walk through the temple and have darshan of the deities, and then walk out. And then when they get in their cars to leave, there's a little stand there. Pick up your prasad on the way out. So they got to drive through like that. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So I don't know what the schedule is. I didn't look. They probably have some classes and some bhajan, selective devotees chanting, selective, but not like a big crowd. That every year big crowds come, Janmashtami, Radhastami, but not this year. So, but whatever they have, it's on their live. They're broadcasting live 24/7, and it's on Facebook, and it's also on YouTube. So this is Radharani's appearance day, and we've been reading from the Nectar of Instruction, how to advance in devotional service. And the last few mantras take us to Vrindavan and Radhakund. So, all right. Boy, it gets really good. Maybe we could start at 8. Hare Krishna. Okay. Just I wish I could read the whole thing. It's not that long. Maybe I can. Starting at mantra 7. You know what? I'm going to read all the mantras, just not the purports, so that we go through it nicely. Om Agana Timarandasya Ganagana Salakaya Chakshina Tamyana Tasmai Sigaravayanaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my most humble obeisances unto his lotus feet. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Okay, so this is mantra 4. We heard about the qualifications of a spiritual master, mantra 1. And I was thinking about that. Qualifications of a spiritual master, they said what they were. But then that doesn't mean they're necessarily authorized to be a spiritual master. So there's two things. There's qualifications, and then there's authorization. Because there's a lot of people who can control the tongue, the belly, the genitals. They can control the urge to speak. They can control the mind's demands. They can control anger. But they might not be Vaishnavas. They might be impersonalists. Hare Krishna, Chaitanya Dasi, Hare Prabhu, Jai Shri Radhe, Hare Krishna. I was going to go through Nectar of Instruction, just read the mantras, the beginning ones, and then when we get to the ones that take us actually to the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani, then maybe read some of the purports too. But so the first mantra was about the spiritual master, the qualifications, but he might not be authorized because they have to be Vaishnav in line of succession to be authorized. What page? What page? Well, I haven't found a page yet, but I was going to go because we already read 1, 2, and 3. So it's just doing a sort of a review. And then we read mantra 2, which explained how devotional service is spoiled by certain activities. And then we read mantra 3, how devotional service, that are favorable for devotional service. We read those. So then mantra 4, Dadati pratigrinati, guyamakyati prichati, bhungte bojai te chaiva, sadvidham priti lakshana. Offering gifts in charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, accepting prasad, offering prasad, are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another. That mantra 5. The meter on these mantras changes. It gets kind of drastic. Krishneti yasya giritam manasa jiyeta dikshasti che prat natibishcha bhajantam isham shushrashaya bhajana vignam ananyam anya nindati sanya vidam ipshita sangalabdya. Okay, so one should mentally honor the devotee who chants the holy name of Lord Krishna. One should offer humble obeisances to the devotee who has undergone spiritual initiation, diksha, and is engaged in worshiping the deity. And one should associate with and faithfully serve that pure devotee who is advanced in undeviated devotional service and whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. That one's a sledgehammer, isn't it? Hare Krishna. Wow. That hits the nail on the head with a sledgehammer. Mantra 6. See, Rupa Goswami, he's taking us to the lotus feet of Radharani. So these verses are building up. You see how devotees associate with each other? Like that, to get to the lotus feet of Radha. So mantra 6. Drishtai svabhava janatai vapuscha doshai na prakritatvam iha bhakta janasya pashyat gangam basamna kalu buddhapena pankar brahmadravatvam apagachiti nira dharmai. Being situated in his original Krishna conscious position, a pure devotee does not identify with the body. Such a devotee should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. Indeed, one should overlook a devotee's having a body born in a low family, a body with a bad complexion, a deformed body, or a diseased or infirm body. According to ordinary vision, such imperfections may seem prominent in the body of a pure devotee, but despite such seeming defects, the body of a pure devotee cannot be polluted. It is exactly like the waters of the Ganges, which sometimes during the rainy season are full of bubbles, foam, and mud. The Ganges water does not become polluted. Those who are advanced in spiritual understanding will bathe in the Ganges without considering the condition of the water. That seems pretty clear, doesn't it? Like, yeah, we're not this body, and okay, so a pure devotee might have a bad complexion or have a limp or something, so shouldn't pay any attention to it. Seems clear, but I know there's more to it. And I know that's on the surface, and I want to, I'm going to be trying to get a little deeper into what's being said there. It's not just like an external thing. There's something else going on there, which I don't see right now, but I want to see it. I want to know what's going on there. But take it at face value. So text 7. Syat Krishna Nama Charitari Sitapya Vidya Pito Patapta Asanasya Nara Chikanu Kintvadarat Anudinam Kalushaiva Justa Swadvi Kramad Bhavati Tad Katamula Hantri. Here we go. Translation. The holy name, character, pastimes, activities of Krishna are all transcendently sweet, like sugar candy. Although the tongue of one afflicted by the jaundice of avidya, ignorance, cannot taste anything sweet, it is wonderful that simply by carefully chanting these sweet names every day, a natural relish awakens within his tongue, and his disease is gradually destroyed at the root. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Simply by carefully chanting these sweet names every day, a natural relish awakens within his tongue, and the disease is gradually destroyed at the root. Krishna. Text 8. So we're getting closer now. Getting closer to Goloka. Getting closer to Radha Krishna. Getting closer to devotional service here. Text 8. Tanama Rupa Charitari Sukirtananu Shmicho Kramena Rasana Manasi Niroja Tishtan Vrajitad Anuragi Jana Nugami Kalam Nayat Akilam Ityupadesha Saram. Okay, here we go. The essence of all advice is that one should utilize one's full time, 24 hours a day, in nicely chanting and remembering the Lord's divine name, transcendental form, qualities, eternal pastimes, and thereby gradually engaging one's tongue and mind. In this way, one should reside in Vraj, Goloka Vrindavan Dham, and serve Krishna under the guidance of devotees. One should follow in the footsteps of the Lord's beloved devotees who are deeply attached to his devotional service. So I'm going to start reading purports here, because now we're getting closer to Vraj here. Let's see what Prabhupada has to say. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Since the mind may be one's enemy or one's friend, one has to train the mind to become his friend. The Krishna consciousness movement is especially meant for training the mind to be always engaged in Krishna's business. The mind contains hundreds and thousands of impressions, not only of this life, but also of many, many lives of the past. These impressions sometimes come in contact with one another and produce contradictory pictures. In this way, the mind's function can become dangerous for a conditioned soul. I know I've read that before, but that is really interesting. The mind is filled with these impressions from thousands of lifetimes. And sometimes they come into contact with one another and produce contradictory. Becomes dangerous for the conditioned soul. Students of psychology are aware of the mind's various psychological changes. Bhagavad Gita 8.6. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam jante kalemaram tam tam vivaiti kaunteya sadatad bhava bhavita. Whatever state of being one remembers, when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. At the time of death, the mind and intelligence of a living entity create the subtle form of a certain type of body for the next life. The mind and intelligence create a subtle form of a particular type of body. If the mind suddenly thinks of something not very congenial, one has to take a corresponding birth in the next life. Because the mind is so flickering, it goes here, there, there. So at the time of death, if it does that, whoops, uh-oh. If the mind suddenly thinks, yeah, he has to take a birth in the next life. On the other hand, if one can think of Krishna at the time of death, he can be transferred to the spiritual world. Goloka, Vrindavan. This process of transmigration is very subtle. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami advises devotees to train their minds in order that they will be unable to remember anything other than Krishna. Similarly, the tongue should be trained to speak only of Krishna and to taste only Krishna prasadam. Srila Rupa Goswami further advises Tishtandra, one should live in Vrindavan or any part of Rajbhumi, or the land of Vrindavan is supposed to be 84 krosas in area. 1 krosa equals 2 square miles. When one makes Vrindavan his residence, he should take shelter of an advanced devotee there. In this way, one should think of Krishna and his pastimes. This is further elucidated by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Krishnam smaran janam tasya preshtam nija samihitam tatad kata vataschaso kuryadvasam vraje sada. Translation. One should always reside in the transcendental realm of Raj and always engage in Krishna smaran janam chasya preshtam, the remembrance of Sri Krishna and his beloved associates. By following in the footsteps of such associates and by entering under their eternal guidance, one can acquire an intense desire to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Again, Sri Rupa Goswami states in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Seva Sadega Rupena Siddha Rupena Chatrahi Tadbhava Lipsuna Karya Raja Lokanu Sarata. In the transcendental realm of Rajdam, one should serve the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna with a feeling similar to that of his associates, and should place himself under the direct guidance of a particular associate of Krishna and should follow in his footsteps. This method is applicable both in the stage of sadhana, spiritual practices, executed while in the stage of bondage, and in the stage of sadhya, God realization. When one is a siddha purusha, or a spiritually perfect soul. So always under the shelter of a devotee. Don't go to Krishna directly. Serve Krishna under the shelter of a devotee. And can adopt their mood. I haven't thought about this for a while, but Prabhupada, a lot of people are going Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, within the movement, and in other areas connected to Chaitanya's movement, other spiritual masters outside of ISKCON, but favorable to ISKCON. And they're going Krishna, Krishna. But we want Prabhupada's Krishna. We want Prabhupada's mood and love for Krishna. That's what we want. We want Prabhupada's Krishna. We want to be under the shelter of Prabhupada. His mood of service. His relationship with Krishna. It's not just Krishna. It's Prabhupada's Krishna. He did that one time with one of the devotees' children. She's about 4 years old. I think it was Malati's daughter, Saraswati, if I remember what happened. And the little girl had like a little Krishna doll. And maybe she put it down or something. Anyway, Prabhupada got the Krishna doll. And he put it behind his back. And he asked, he said, "Where's Krishna?" And the little girl, "Where's Krishna?" She was looking for a Krishna doll. "Where's Krishna?" And then she looked at Prabhupada and she said, "Prabhupada has Krishna." Okay. Something like that. We want Prabhupada's Krishna. "Where's Krishna?" "Krishna." "Prabhupada has Krishna." Hare Krishna. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has commented as follows on the verse. One who has not yet developed interest in Krishna consciousness should give up all material motives and train his mind by following the progressive regulative principles. So we were saying there's two kinds of regulative principles. There's regulative principles of civilized human life. No meat, no fish or eggs, no intoxication, no gambling, and no funny business with sex activity. Civilized human life. But the progressive regulative principles are hearing, chanting, remembering. The 9 processes of devotional service given by Prahlad Maharaj. Especially because of the mind, hearing and chanting and remembering Krishna's name, his form, quality, pastimes, and so forth. In this way, after developing a taste for such things, one should try to live in Vrindavan and pass his time constantly remembering Krishna's name, fame, pastimes, and qualities under the direction and protection of an expert devotee. This is the sum and substance of all instruction regarding the cultivation of devotional service. So what I see in there is the Shiksha relationship. And Prabhupada is everyone's spiritual master. He's Jagat Guru because of his books. No one has books like Prabhupada. No one has purports like Prabhupada. His books are the books. Until somebody else steps forward with other books that make these outdated, these are the books. So Prabhupada is the Jagat Guru. He's everyone's spiritual master. But for further instruction and guidance, this is what I see Prabhupada referring to here without actually saying directly, the Shiksha relationship. One, he should give up all material motives, train his mind by following prohibited. Yeah, that's under the direction of the Guru. Initiation by the Guru. And develop a taste for such things. Under the direction and protection of an expert devotee. Direction, that implies instruction, which implies shiksha. Now Prabhupada can also be shiksha. And I'm not clear whether how that's working now that Prabhupada's disappeared. So one of the questions I want to drop on my group the next time they have an open Ishtagosti session. I'm going to come with a Mina bomb, and I'm going to drop this one, explain how that works in relationship to Prabhupada. Yeah, I think I have a pretty clear idea, but I want to hear what they have to say about it. But I know for myself, I have Diksha from Prabhupada. He apologized for making so many unqualified disciples like me. But, hey, he said it was an emergency, so the door was open, I wandered in. Hare Krishna. But I know I need guidance. And from time to time, Krishna has sent different devotees who have helped in specific ways to help me advance. And that is like a shiksha kind of relationship. So I'm always open for that, Hare Krishna, because that's our position, even in Vraj, under the guidance and direction. There's always someone more advanced. There's always those more or less on the same level, and then there are always those that need help. And we associate differently with the ones in the different levels. Okay, in the neophyte stage, I don't know why this has quotation marks around it, but whatever. In the neophyte stage, one should always engage in hearing Krishna Katha. This is called Shravana Das, the stage of hearing. By constantly hearing the transcendental holy name of Krishna and hearing of his transcendental form, qualities, and pastimes, one can attain to the stage of acceptance, called Bharanadas. When one attains this stage, he becomes attached to the hearing of Krishna Katha. So in the beginning, you do it because you're supposed to do it, and you're in some kind of a program to make advancement, and you don't really have any taste for it, but you do it because you're supposed to. You're trying to follow the process. But by constantly hearing, we can attain to the stage of acceptance, kind of like a surrendered stage, and become attached to hearing. Now you become attached to it. You don't do it because you have to do it. You do it because, wow, somehow the day is incomplete if I don't do it. I'm attached to hearing. When one is able to chant in ecstasy, he attains the stage of smaranavasta, the stage of remembering. So ecstasy. What is ecstasy? What is ecstasy? What is it? Let's Google smart. Google's going to tell us what ecstasy is. This is what ecstasy is. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. No, it's not a pill. Ecstasy, an overwhelming feeling of great happiness and joyful excitement. And then there's a second meaning. An emotional or religious frenzy or trance-like state. Originally one involving an experience of mystic self-transcendence. Overwhelming feeling, great happiness. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, that's ecstasy. So, when one is able to chant in ecstasy, he attains the stage smaranavasta, the stage of remembering. So it's not just remembering, like remembering what's on your shopping list, or remembering where your glasses are. It's not that kind of remembering. It's in the present moment, remembering Krishna, and Krishna is present in that remembrance. Recollection, absorption, meditation, constant remembrance, and trance are the 5 items of progressive Krishna Smarana. Okay, 5 items. Recollection, absorption, meditation, constant remembrance, and trance. At first, remembrance of Krishna may be interrupted at intervals, but later remembrance proceeds uninterrupted. When remembrance is uninterrupted, it becomes concentrated and is called meditation. So they're progressive. First remembering and it gets interrupted. And then when it's uninterrupted, it's meditation. When meditation expands and becomes constant, it's called anusmriti. By uninterrupted and unceasing anusmriti, one enters the stage of Samadhi. And that's where we want to go. Spiritual trance, Samadhi. After Smarana Das or Samadhi has fully developed, the soul comes to understand his original constitutional position. At that time, he can perfectly and clearly understand his eternal relationship with Krishna. This is called Sampati Das, the perfection of life. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. If that isn't enough to make you want to keep chanting, Chaitanya Charitamrita advises those who are neophytes to give up all kinds of motivated desires and simply engage in regulative devotional service of the Lord according to the directions of scriptures. In this way, a neophyte can gradually develop attachment for Krishna's name, fame, form, qualities, and so forth. When one has developed such attachment, he can spontaneously serve the lotus feet of Krishna even without following the regulative principles. Okay, all you cheaters and rascals, here's what you were waiting for. Go get those chocolate candy bars and go get a... I'm not sure which regulative principles Prabhupada's talking about here. Regulative principles of human life, or the regulative principles of chanting, hearing, and remembering. I'm not sure which regulative principles. I guess when I get to that stage, it'll be clear, right? Until then, you got to follow all of them, right? Right. When one has developed attachment like that, where he's in this Sampati Das, the perfection of life, and clearly understands eternal relationship with Krishna, he can spontaneously serve the lotus feet of Krishna without following regulative principles. The stage is called Raga Bhakti, or devotional service in spontaneous love. At that stage, the devotee can follow in the footsteps of one of the eternal associates of Krishna in Vrindavan. This is called Raganuga Bhakti. Raganuga Bhakti, or spontaneous devotional service, can be executed in Shantaras, when one aspires to be like Krishna's cows, or his stick, or a flute, in the hand of Krishna, or the flowers around Krishna's neck. In the Dasya Ras, one follows in the footsteps of servants like Chitraka, Patrika, Raktaka. Those are servants of the Lord. In friendly Sakya Ras, become a friend like Baladev, Sridham, Sudam. Vatsalya Ras, characterized by parental affection, one can become like Nanda Maharaj and Yasoda. In the Madhurya Ras, characterized by conjugal love, one can become like Srimati Radharani, or her lady friends, such as Lalita, and her serving maids, manjaris, like Rupa and Rati. This is the essence of all instructions in the matter of devotional service. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Okay, so now he's taken us, Rupa Goswami's taken us all the way to Vraj. But that's only text number 8. There's 9 texts. So here's text 9. Oh boy. These aren't even meter anymore. They're like, it's almost like prose. I don't know, do I dare try? Vaikuntaj Janito Vara Madhupuri Tatrapi Raso Savat Vindaranyam Udarapani Ramana Tatrapi Govardhan Radha Kundam Ihapi Gokulapate Prema Tri Plavanat Kuryat Asya Virajato Giri Tate Sevam Viveki Naka. I don't know, it looks like he might have given up on trying to get things to rhyme. Or maybe, I don't know. Hare Krishna. Alright. Translation. The holy place known as Mathura is spiritually superior to Vaikuntha, the transcendental world, because the Lord appears there. Superior to Mathura is the transcendental forest of Vrindavan, because of Krishna's Rasa Leela pastime. And superior to the forest of Vrindavan is Govardhan Hill, for it was raised by the divine hand of Sri Krishna and was the site of his various loving pastimes. And above all, the super excellent Sri Radha Kund stands supreme, for it is overflooded with the ambrosial nectarine prema of the Lord of Gokula, Sri Krishna. Where then is that intelligent person who is unwilling to serve this divine Radha Kund, which is situated at the foot of Govardhan Hill? Jai Radha. We're getting there. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada's purport: the spiritual world is 3/4 of the total creation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it is the most exalted region. You know, I said how the other day when I was doing my why question, why are we created, imperfect, susceptible to... And devotee had to correct me. Well, we're not exactly created. We're part of Krishna and not exactly created. So creating implying a beginning and an end. It was created, and then, because that's how we think of creation, a beginning and an end, in material terms. But here, the spiritual world is 3/4 of the total creation. The spiritual world, everything is a creation of Krishna. And it doesn't, some creations have beginning and end, and some don't. So creation has a broader sense to it. It's not necessarily a beginning and an end. It's a creation. Hare Krishna. An emanation, an expansion. So even if you want to say an emanation or expansion, you can say, well, when did it emanate? When did it expand? It's not that kind of an emanation or expansion. or creation. So, there. Krishna. The spiritual world is naturally superior to the material world. Mathura and the adjoining areas, although appearing in the material world, are considered superior to the spiritual world because the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself appeared at Mathura. So Mathura, the interior forests of Vrindavan are considered superior to Mathura because of the presence of the 12 forests. Dwadasvan, such as Talavan, Madhuvan, Bahulavan, which are famous for the various pastimes of the Lord. Thus, the interior Vrindavan forest is considered superior to Mathura. But superior to these forests is the divine Govardhan Hill, because Lord Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill like an umbrella, raising it with his lotus-like beautiful hand to protect his associates, the denizens of Raj, from the torrential rain sent by angry Indra, king of the demigods. It is also at Govardhan Hill that Krishna tends cows with his cowherd friends, and there also he had his rendezvous with his most beloved Sri Radha and engaged in loving pastimes with her. Radha Kund at the foot of Govardhan is superior to all, because it is there that love of Krishna overflows. Advanced devotees prefer to reside at Radha Kund because this place is the site of many memories of the eternal loving affairs between Krishna and Radharani, Rati Vilas. I went to Radha Kund. We were told not to swim in Radha Kund. The residents who live there, they swim in Radha Kund. We were told not to, that to honor Radha Kund by just taking a few drops of water, putting it on your head. And that's what I did. And there were some scary monkeys there. I mean, they were as big as people. I mean, they were ready to pounce on you and grab your camera or whatever it is, your bag or whatever. Some scary monkeys there. And someone gave me this. It's a little brick of Radha Kund. It's clay from Radha Kund. And so I wear it. You know, it's tilak, Radha Kund tilak. Hare Krishna. In Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, it is stated that when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first visited the area of Rajabhumi, he could not at first find the location of Radha Kund. This means that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was actually searching for the exact location of Radha Kund. Finally, he found the holy spot, and there was a small pond there. He took his bath in that small pond and told his devotees that the actual Radha Kund was situated there. Later, the pond was excavated by Lord Chaitanya's devotees, headed first by the 6 Goswamis such as Rupa and Raghunath. Also, it was either Jaghai or Madhai, one of the fallen twin brothers who surrendered, was also instrumental in uncovering Radha Kund. Presently, there's a large lake there known as Radha Kund. Srila Rupa Goswami has given much stress to Radha Kund because of Sri Chaitanya's desire to find it. Who then would give up Radha Kund and try to reside elsewhere? No person with transcendental intelligence would do so. The importance of Radha Kund, however, cannot be realized by other Vaishnava sampradayas, nor can persons uninterested in devotional service of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu understand the spiritual importance and divine nature of Radha Kund. Thus Radha Kund is mainly worshipped by Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the followers of Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is appearing in the mood of Radha in separation from Krishna. And Radha Kund is where Radha and Krishna engaged in many loving pastimes. Hare Krishna. Text 10. Oh no, another. Okay. Karmibhya parito hare priyataya bhaktimyaya yaninas tedyo yana vimukta bhakti parama premaika nishtas tata tebyasta pashupala pankaja trishtas tabyo pisa radhika presta tavad iham tadiya sarasi tamnas rayaka kriti. I'm looking at these verses in what I'm thinking is, this is what I'm getting, is that Rupa Goswami is becoming more and more in ecstasy as he's pouring this out, and it's just pouring out, and it's that's why these verses are so unusual. It's just pouring out because he's in ecstasy. Translation. In the Shastra it is said that all types of fruitive workers who are advanced in knowledge of the higher values of life is favored by the Supreme Lord Hari. Okay, of all types of fruitive workers, he who is advanced in knowledge of the higher values of life is favored by the Supreme Lord Hari. Out of many such persons who are advanced in knowledge, jnanis, one who is practically liberated by virtue of his knowledge may take to devotional service. He is superior to the others. However, one who has actually attained prema, pure love of Krishna, is superior to him. The gopis are exalted above all advanced devotees because they are always totally dependent upon Sri Krishna, the transcendental cowherd boy. Among the gopis, Srimati Radharani is the most dear to Krishna. Her Kund, lake, is as profoundly dear to Lord Krishna as is this most beloved of the gopis. Who then will not reside at Radha Kund and in a spiritual body surcharged with ecstatic devotional feelings, aprakrita bhav, render loving service to the divine couple Sri Radha Govinda, who perform their Astakaliya Leela, their eternal eightfold daily pastimes. Indeed, those who execute devotional service on the banks of Radha Kund are the most fortunate people in the universe. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada's commentary. At the present moment, almost everyone is engaged in some kind of fruitive activity. Those who are desirous of gaining material profits by working are called karmis, or fruitive workers. All living entities within this material world have come under the spell of Maya. This is described in Vishnu Purana. Okay, there's some Sanskrit here, but there's no translation, so. Sages have divided the energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead into three categories, namely, spiritual energy, marginal energy, and material energy. The material energy is considered to be third class, Tritiya Shakti. Those living beings within the jurisdiction of the material energy sometimes engage themselves, like dogs and hogs, in working very hard simply for sense gratification. However, in this life, or after executing pious activities in the next life, some karmis become strongly attached to performing various kinds of sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas. Thus, on the strength of their pious merit, they are elevated to heavenly planets. Actually, those who perform sacrifices strictly according to Vedic injunctions are elevated to the moon and planets above the moon. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. See how terribly significant and important it is to always keep in proper perspective Radha and Krishna. And Prabhupada hears this nectarine verse about the gopis and Radha Kund, and what is Prabhupada doing? He's giving the proper perspective so that it will not be misunderstood, not taken cheaply, and in that way actually perfect life in love of Godhead. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. As mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, Shine Punye Marchilokam Vishanti. After exhausting the results of their so-called pious activities, they again return to the earth, Marchaloka, the place of death. So they do pious activities, they get elevated, they use up the credits from those pious activities, and then they come back down. Like you work all year for a vacation, and then you got to go back and work some more. Get some more money so you can go on another vacation. Although such persons may be elevated to heavenly planets by pious activities, and although they may enjoy life there for many thousands of years, they nonetheless must return to this planet when the results of their pious activities are exhausted. Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna. This is the position of all karmis, including those who act piously and those who act impiously. On this planet we find many businessmen, politicians, and others who are simply interested in material happiness. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Also on the altar, Radha and Krishna, sometimes Krishna's foot is, you can see Krishna's foot. But Radharani's feet are always covered. They're always covered. Because it's so easy to fall into a materially contaminated understanding of Radha. She's very much protected. They attempt to earn money by all means, not considering whether such means are pious or impious. Those people are called karmis or materialists. Among the karmis are some vikarmis, people who act without the guidance of Vedic knowledge. Those who act on the basis of Vedic knowledge perform sacrifices for satisfaction of Vishnu and to receive benedictions from him. In this way, they're elevated to higher planetary systems. Such karmis are superior to vikarmis, for they are faithful to the directions of the Vedas, and certainly are dear to Krishna. Krishna says, Bhagavad Gita, Ye yatamam prapadyante tam tataiva bhajamyaham. In whatever way one surrenders unto me, I reward him accordingly. Krishna is so kind that he fulfilled the desires of the karmis and jnanis, not to speak of the bhaktas. Although the karmis are sometimes elevated to higher planetary systems, as long as they remain attached to fruitive activities, they must accept new material bodies after death. If one acts piously, he can attain a new body among the demigods in the higher planetary system, or he may attain other positions in which he can enjoy a higher standard of material happiness. On the other hand, those who are engaged in impious activities are degraded and take birth as animals, trees, plants. Thus, those fruitive actors who do not care for Vedic directions, the vikarmis, are not appreciated by learned saintly persons. As stated in Bhagavatam, Nunam pramata kute vikarma yadindriya priya taya aprinoti nasaru manye yata atmanoyam asan api kleshada asadeha. Translation: materialists who work hard like dogs and hawks simply for sense gratification are actually mad. They simply perform all kinds of abominable activities for sense gratification. Materialistic activities are not at all worthy of an intelligent man, for as a result of such activities one gets a material body which is full of misery. The purpose of human life is to get out of the threefold miserable conditions which are concomitant with material existence. Unfortunately, fruitive workers are mad to earn money and acquire temporary material comforts by all means. Therefore, they risk being degraded to lower species of life. Materialists fully make many plans to become happy in this material world. They do not stop to consider that they will live only for a certain number of years, out of which they must spend a major portion acquiring money for sense gratification. Ultimately, such activities end in death. Materialists do not understand that after giving up the body, they may become embodied as lower animals, plants, or trees. Thus, all their activities simply defeat the purpose of life. Not only are they born ignorant, but they act on the platform of ignorance, thinking that they are getting material benefits in the shape of skyscraper buildings, big cars, honorable positions, and so on. Misdirected civilization. The materialists do not know that in the next life they will be degraded and that all their activities simply serve as parabhav, defeat. This is the verdict of Srimad Bhagavatam, parabhavas tavad abodha jata. One should therefore be eager to understand the science of the soul, Atma Tattva, unless one comes to the platform of Atma Tattva, by which one understands that the soul and not the body is oneself, one remains on the platform of ignorance. Out of thousands and even millions of ignorant people who are wasting their time simply gratifying their senses, one may come to the platform of knowledge and understand higher values of life. Such a person is called a jnani. The jnani knows that fruitive activities will bind him to material existence and cause him to transmigrate from one kind of body to another. As indicated in Srimad Bhagavatam by the term sarirabandha, bound to bodily existence, as long as one maintains any conception of sense enjoyment, his mind will be absorbed in karma, fruitive activities, and this will oblige him to transmigrate from one body to another. It's like Prabhupada, he goes all the way back to 1 and 1 equals 2, and to bring us to the actual being able to. He's got to go all the way through. My goodness. Thus, a jnani is considered superior to a karmi because he at least refrains from the blind activities of sense enjoyment. This is the verdict of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, although a jnani may be liberated from ignorance, like the karmis are ignorant, unless he comes to the platform of devotional service, he's still considered to be in ignorance of vidya. So the karmi has no knowledge, he's just working, hand to mouth. The jnani, he's studying, he's trying to get knowledge, and so he's a little bit better. And he may come to the platform of devotional service. But unless he comes to the platform of devotion, he remains in ignorance. Although one may be accepted as a jnani or one advanced in knowledge, his knowledge is considered impure because he has no information of devotional service and thus neglects the direct worship of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When a jnani takes to devotional service, he rapidly becomes superior to an ordinary jnani. Such an advanced person is described as jnana vimukta bhakti parama. How a jnani takes to devotional service is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. Bahunam janmanamante jnanavanmam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sadrilabha. Translation: after many births and deaths, one who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes, all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Actually, a person is wise when he surrenders unto the lotus feet of Krishna, but such a Mahatma, great soul, is very rare. After taking to devotional service under the regulative principles, a person may come to the platform of spontaneous love of Godhead, following in the footsteps of great devotees like Narada, Shaunaka, Sanatana. The Supreme Personality of Godhead then recognizes him to be superior. The devotees who have developed love of Godhead are certainly in an exalted position. Of all these devotees, the gopis are recognized as superior because they do not know anything other than satisfying Krishna. That's why they are recognized as superior, because they do not know anything other than satisfying Krishna. Nor do the gopis expect any return from Krishna. Indeed, sometimes Krishna puts them in extreme suffering by separating himself from them. Nonetheless, they cannot forget Krishna. When Krishna left Vrindavan for Mathura, the gopis became most dejected and spent the rest of their lives simply crying in separation from Krishna. This means that, in one sense, they were never actually separated from Krishna. There's no difference between thinking of Krishna and associating with Krishna. Rather, vipralamba seva, thinking of Krishna in separation, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did, is far better than serving Krishna directly. Thus, of all the devotees who have developed unalloyed devotional service for Krishna, the gopis are the most exalted. And out of all these exalted gopis, Srimati Radharani is the highest. No one can excel the devotional service of Srimati Radharani. Indeed, even Krishna cannot understand the attitude of Srimati Radharani. Therefore, he took her position and appeared as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just to understand her transcendental feelings. In this way, Sri Rupa Goswami gradually concludes that Srimati Radharani is the most exalted devotee of Krishna, and her Kund, her lake, Sri Radha Kund, is the most exalted place. This is verified in a quotation from Laghu Bhagavatamrita, as quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Yata Radha Priya Vishnos Tasya Kundam Priyam Tata Sarva Gopishu Saivakai Vishnur Adyanta Vallabha. Translation: just as Srimati Radharani is dear to the Supreme Lord Krishna Vishnu, so her bathing place, Radha Kund, is equally dear to Krishna. Among all the gopis, she alone stands supreme as the Lord's most beloved. Therefore, everyone interested, this is Prabhupada, everyone interested in Krishna consciousness should immediately take shelter of Radha Kund and execute devotional service there throughout one's life. This is the conclusion of Sri Rupa Goswami in the 10th verse of Upadesha Amrta. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. So, Maybe I should go to Radha right now, like put the house up for sale, sell everything, and go to Radha. If someone can do that, Indra Prabhu did that. That's what Indra did. He went, he went. But I'm also understanding its consciousness, that wherever the devotee is, the consciousness is Radha Kund, then Radha Kund is there. Just like Krishna, it's absolute. So you're thinking of Krishna, Krishna is there. Krishna's in his holy name. So the meditation, Radha Kund, it may not be feasible to physically transport the body to, but the consciousness. Hare Krishna. Maybe I can get some more. Maybe that's another bomb I can drop on my Thursday night group. Yeah, I'll drop this bomb here. Krishna. See what they do with it. I should start taking notes. I'm finding lots of questions here. Okay, now this is text 11. It's a short purport. It's the last text. I thought we were there. This is Radha Kund. Well, let's see. There's one more verse. Let's see what happens here. Krishna yochai pranaya vasati priyasibo pi radha kundam chasya munibir abitas tajik eva vyadhai yat preshtar apyalam asulabam kim punarbhakti vajam tad medam sakri apisaras natur avikaroti. Of the many objects of favored delight, and of all the lovable damsels of Rajabhumi, Srimati Radharani is certainly the most treasured object of Krishna's love. And in every respect, her divine Kund is described by great sages as similarly dear to him. Undoubtedly, Radha Kund is very rarely attained, even by the great devotees. Therefore, it is even more difficult for ordinary devotees to attain. If one simply bathed once within those holy waters, one's pure love of Krishna is fully aroused. Prabhupada's purport. Prabhupada asks a why question. Why is Radha Kund so exalted? A why question. Why is Radha Kund so exalted? Then he answers it. The lake is so exalted because it belongs to Srimati Radharani, who is the most beloved object of Sri Krishna. Among all the gopis, she's the most beloved. Similarly, her lake, Sri Radha Kund, is also described by great sages as the lake that is as dear to Krishna as Radha herself. Indeed, Krishna's love for Radha Kund and Srimati Radharani is the same in all respects. Radha Kund is very rarely attained, even by great personalities fully engaged in devotional service, not to speak of ordinary devotees who are only engaged in the practice of Vaidhi Bhakti. It is stated that a devotee will at once develop pure love of Krishna in the wake of the gopis if he once takes a bath in Radha Kund. Srila Rupa Goswami recommends that even if one cannot live permanently on the banks of Radha Kund, he should at least take a bath in the lake as many times as possible. This is a most important item in the execution of devotional service. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes in this connection that Sri Radha Kund is the most select place for those interested in advancing their devotional service in the wake of the lady friends, Shakis, and confidential serving maids, Manjaris, of Srimati Radharani. Living entities who are eager to return home to the transcendental kingdom of God, Goloka Vrindavan, by means of attaining their spiritual bodies, Siddhadeha. should live at Radhakund, take shelter of the confidential serving maids of Sri Radha, and under their direction engage constantly in her service. This is the most exalted method for those engaged in devotional service under the protection of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In this connection, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes that even great sages and great devotees like Narada and Shanaka do not get an opportunity to come to Radhakund to take their baths. What then to speak of ordinary persons, ordinary devotees? If by great fortune one gets an opportunity to come to Radhakund and bathe even once, he can develop his transcendental love for Krishna exactly as the gopis did. It is also recommended that one should live on the banks of Radhakund and should be absorbed in the loving service of the Lord. One should bathe there regularly and give up all material conceptions, taking shelter of Sri Radha and her assistant gopis. If one is thus constantly engaged during his lifetime, after giving up the body, he will return back to Godhead to serve Sri Radha in the same way as he contemplated during his life on the banks of Radhakund. The conclusion is that to live on the banks of Radhakund and to bathe there daily constitute the highest perfection of devotional service. It is a difficult position to attain, even for great sages and devotees like Narada. Thus, there is no limit to the glory of Sri Radhakund. By serving Radhakund, one can get an opportunity to become an assistant of Srimati Radharani under the eternal guidance of the gopis. Radhakund. Hare Krishna. Radhakund. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Appearance Day, Srimati Radharani, Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Krishna.